Welcome back to Beginner Miniatures. Today I'm painting Valkyrie from Marvel Crisis Protocol. I've already cleaned her up and primed her gray. First thing I'm going to be doing is painting her cape, and I did this with some wet blending. So I began by painting in the darkest blue into all of the recesses, and then I came back with a lighter blue over all the raised points, and then just came back with my brush and continued to mix it in the spaces in between and mix some transitional colors so I could get some nice gradation. For the underside of the cloak, I did basically the same thing, except I used an overall darker color for the recesses and a darker color for the highlights as well, and then just blended it together. I ended up spending a lot of time just pushing it back and forth on this cape till I got it to a point that I liked it. And of course at the end I did some edge highlights on the edges of the cloak to get them nice and bright. Then for the fabric on her body, I used the same colors and just basically hit all the raised surfaces that were facing upwards with the highlight colors and the surfaces which were facing down with the dark colors, and blended in between with some transitional colors. Then to finish off all of the blue on her body and her cape, I went over the whole thing with a blue wash to darken all the creases and blend it all together. Then I base coated all of the leather with a dark brown. This took a while because there were a lot of straps across her body and I wanted to be really careful to not get it on any of the blue which I had already painted. Then I went and painted all of the silver metallics with some lead belcher. This would be things like her shin guards, her belt straps, her sword blades, and then also some rivets on her belts as well. And of course I also got the metal pauldrons on her armor. Then I painted the rest of the metallics with a rose gold. This was all of the hilts on her daggers and her swords. Then I base coated all of her skin with her skin tone. Then it was time to paint the eyes. This is a little bit out of focus, but what I like to do for it is I put a bunch of white in and over flood it, and then I trim it back with the skin tone, and then I take the black and I mix it with a bit of retarder so that way it will take longer to dry and won't dry on the bristles, and then come back in and put very tiny dots for the pupils. Then moving on to the hair. I know that this looks very similar to the skin-based tone, but it was actually a bit different, and I really differentiated it later with the washes and highlights I did on it. Then I painted her wrist straps with some pure white. Then it was time for some washes. I used Army Painter's Strong Tone Wash, which is a dark brown wash over the wraps around her arms as well as her hair. Then for her skin, I mixed up some Strong Tone Wash with some Red Tone Wash to create a flesh wash and went over all of her skin with it. I was careful to not flood the face because I didn't want to get any of the red or brown in her eyes, so I glazed it over the areas on her skin so that way the tone would still match the rest of it. Then I used Cork Brown, which is a light brown, to highlight up the leather. I thinned it down a good bit so I could get some nice scratchy highlights and edge highlights on all of the leather bits. Then I went back with basically the base tone of the skin and started to highlight all of the skin that wasn't recessed or shaded over by something hanging above it. Then for my lighter skin highlight tone, I mixed up some light brown and I thinned it down so that way I could glaze it on over all of the highest points, especially focusing on the face with like cheekbones and chin and nose and all of that. Then for highlighting the hair, I basically just kept mixing in increasing amounts of yellow into the base tone, so that way it would come out as a nice blonde, and then brushing it across the hair strands, so that way it would get on the raised parts of the hair. Then for highlighting up all of the rose gold, I just hit the edges with some normal gold to get it as a brighter, shinier finish. Then to highlight up my silver metallics, anywhere which I went over with lead belcher, I now went over all of the sharp edges with some silver, just to make it a bit shinier. Then I painted the base and the rock she was standing on with gray. Then a white dry brushing over the base and the rock to get it nice and highlighted up. Then I shaded the base with some dark tone wash and really made sure I got a lot in all of the cracks. And then of course for a final step to set the model out, I painted the base rim in with black. And after a layer of dull coat, Valkyrie is done. I'm really happy with the way she turned out. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.